Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we try to figure out what all these corporate documents actually mean. Today we're diving into a recent filing from Fortress Credit Realty Income Trust, and let's just say their latest update has some numbers that are definitely worth a closer look. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, stick around because we have some interesting NAV per share figures and a peek at where their money is actually going. And hey, if you love cutting through the corporate jargon to get to the real story, make sure you are subscribed. We also have a fantastic community Discord server linked down below where we talk about these filings in real time. Alright, let's get down to business with Fortress Credit Realty Income Trust. This report comes out on the 16th of September 2025, and it is all about their financial health and performance as of the 31st of August of the same year. So Fortress Credit Realty Income Trust, or as we'll call them the company, has shared some key figures about their net asset value, or NAV per share. Think of NAV as the company's true value if you were to sell off all its assets and pay off all its debts. They've given us the NAV per share for each different class of their common stock. This is really important because it shows how much each share is worth at a very specific point in time. For example, Class B shares were valued at $20.159 per S-share. Class R shares were just a little lower at $20.0215. Then you have Class J -1 shares at $20.0276. Class J -2 shares were at $20.0124. Class J -4 shares edged up to $20.2498. Class S shares were at $20.2314. Class I shares came in at $20.23. And finally, Class E shares were valued at $20.1374. So you can see there are slight differences between the share classes, which is pretty typical in how these trusts are structured. Now, let's talk about what makes up this total value. The company S total net asset value, the sum of everything, stands at a massive $1.101 billion. That is a lot of zeros. What is driving this big number, a huge chunk, $1.618 billion, comes from their commercial real estate loan investments. That is their bread and butter, the core of their business. They also have $366 million in other real estate related assets. On the more liquid side, they have about $111 million in cash and cash equivalents, which means money they can access easily. They also hold $119 million in restricted cash, which is cash that is set aside for specific purposes. But of course, no company operates without debt. Fortress Credit Realty Income Trust has $802 million in secured debt arrangements. Then there are other liabilities like subscriptions received in advance, revolving credit facilities, distributions payable, amounts due to affiliates, and other liabilities, all adding up to significant outflows of cash. After accounting for all these assets and liabilities, the net asset value is $1.101 billion, and this value is spread across 54,785 outstanding shares. To really see how they are performing, it is always useful to compare with the previous month. So let S look at the figures from the 31st of July 2025. Back in July, their commercial real estate loan investments were at $1.44 billion. Their investments in real estate related assets were $397 million. On the debt side, they had secured debt arrangements totaling $674 million. The total net asset value in July was $1.061 billion, and this was spread across 52,810 outstanding shares. So when we compare August to July, we see a growth in their total net asset value from $1.061 billion to $1.101 billion. That is a positive move, showing an increase in the overall value of the company. They also saw an increase in outstanding shares from 52,810 to 54,785, which likely means they V-issued more shares, probably to bring in more capital. Let S revisit those NAV per S-share figures for a moment. Class B shares, which we saw at $20.159 in August, were at $20.1458 in July. Class R shares went from $20.0098 in July to $20.0215 in August. Class J -1 shares moved from $20.0158 to $20.0276. Class J -2 saw a slight increase from $20.0006 to $20.0124. Class J -4 shares went from $20.2418 to $20.2498. Class S shares increased from $20.2247 to $20.2314. Class I shares moved from $20.2192 to $20.23. And Class E shares grew from $20.1243 to $20.1374. Overall, you can see a general upward trend in NAV per share across most classes from July to August. This suggests the company's underlying assets are performing well and increasing in value. The growth in their loan portfolio and real estate assets is translating into higher per share values for investors. And finally, managing all this is their Chief Financial Officer, Avraham Dreyfus, who signed off on this report. Now, looking at these numbers, Fortress Credit Realty Income Trust seems to be on a solid growth trajectory. Their core business of commercial real estate loans is expanding, and that is being reflected in their NAV. The increase in NAV per share across the board is a good sign for investors. However, it is important to remember that real estate and lending can be sensitive to economic changes. So while things look good now, keeping an eye on broader economic indicators will be key. The significant debt levels, while standard for this type of business, mean they need to consistently perform to manage those obligations effectively. In conclusion, Fortress Credit Realty Income Trust is showing healthy growth in its assets and consequently its net asset value. The diversified share classes all saw a positive uptick, which is encouraging. The story here is one of steady expansion in their core real estate lending business. Alright, that is our breakdown of Fortress Credit Realty Income Trust's latest filing. What is your take on these numbers and what they signal for the company's future? Do you think their real estate focus is a strong bet? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps us out, and make sure you subscribe for more deep dives into corporate filings. Don't forget to join our Discord community. Again, the link is in the description for even more discussions and insights. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Corporate Decoder.